Hello, hello, hello again. It's Miss Tracy, and I'm here with my amazing facts and finds. And I wanted to talk to you today about a prophet by the name of Elijah. So, when you were listening to Miss Madeline's filmed this week, her story, she was talking about Jesus performing his first miracle. And we're like, it's the first miracle we know of, right? That Jesus talks. It's not about his time, because there's a lot of interesting stuff in the Bible. And one of the things, a Bible verse Miss Madeline and I were talking about, was that I think it's John that said that if all the miracles and things Jesus had written down were written down, there would be books and books and books and books. So we don't know what all he did. We just know what has been God wanted us to know. So one day we will know it all, hopefully. We don't know what that means yet. So what is a miracle? You know, we hear that word a lot. Oh, it was a miracle. It was a miracle. It was a miracle. What's a miracle? Well, a miracle is a lot more than some ordinary little thing. It's a big thing, guys. It's big. So a miracle is an effect or extraordinary event in the physical world that surpasses all known human or natural powers, and it is credited to or ascribed to or it's said to be done by a supernatural cause. We know it's God. You know, such an effect or event manifesting or considered as the work of God. This is the definition I got out of a book. They don't know our God, apparently, because our God's first. Miracles are from God. They can be huge and they can be small. You know, so we're going to talk about a wonder, a marvel. Okay. So the word miracle comes from the Latin mirare, I think that's how you say it, meaning to wonder. So I think part of the thing is God wanted to show us his power. You know, we want to wonder. We want to be in wonder, and we want to wonder to think, right? Two meanings of wonder. And miracles evoke wonder or surprise or praise in us and remind us that our God is all-powerful and he's nearby. The Bible tells us that too. Okay, so some of the Old Testament miracles, we've talked about some of them, was the creation. God spoke this world into existence. He said, let there be light, and there was light. And he said, let there be man. Which is kind of interesting because I've heard a lot of sermons and studies about the power of the spoken word. You know, I'd often, especially if I'm really, really like feeling I need God, I will say my prayers aloud, not just think them. I'll say, dear God, please, you know. So we know about Abraham and Sarah becoming parents when they're old in life, when they were past the age. And the same thing happened with Zachariah and Elizabeth and the birth of John the Baptist. We've known about the parting of the waters by Moses and Joshua, the Red Sea and the Jordan. God did that so that the Israelites walked through on dry land when they left Egypt, and then when they left the wilderness, they walked across on dry land. Elijah, that we're going to talk about today, he also parted the rivers of the Jordan with his cloak. So 3 times we know of that the river was parted. Jesus walked on the water. The disciples were out in a boat and they saw Jesus come walking across the water. And Peter briefly walked on the water. And remember what happened to Peter. He saw Jesus and he said, Lord, if it's you, command me to come to you. And Jesus said, come. And Peter got out of the boat and started walking on the water. What happened to Peter? He took his eyes off Jesus and started looking at the waves, and he started sinking, and Jesus saved him. Let's keep our eyes on Jesus. You know, that's a miracle. I think I would have been, I hope I would have just been like, I'm coming. Looked right at him. Okay. So the walls of Jericho, we talked about this last year, maybe the year before, about how it was God's victory. Joshua was told to lead the people of Israel around the city 6 days and just go around the city quietly once, and then on that last day they were to march around, and then when Joshua gave the word, they played the shofars, the trumpets, and they screamed and hollered and shouted, and the walls just fell. That was a miracle. It was a miracle. Okay. Another one was when the Israelites had sinned and God had allowed the Babylonians to take them into captivity. There were three Israelite boys who were being trained to be Babylonians. They renamed them. These were not the Israelite names, I don't think. I think these were their Babylonian names. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. This is with, they were in the fire with Daniel. Daniel was one of their peers. But these three men were thrown into the fiery pit because they wouldn't renounce God. And when they looked into the fiery pit, they made it really, really, really hot, as hot as they could make it. And when they looked into the pit, they saw these three men, and they saw one other man, and they were just walking around, and nothing happened to them because it was a miracle. God protected them. They believed in God. They trusted in God. They were doing God's will, and he protected them and saved their lives. And we know about Daniel being thrown in the lion's den, and the lions not eating him. So I just wanted today to talk about Elijah. He was one of the prophets. After David and Solomon, the Israelites divided, and there were two kingdoms. And there was a king and his wife, and they were doing things that didn't make God happy. Because remember our 10 commandments? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and all your strength. And they were worshiping other gods, one in particular named Baal. So God called Elijah to come and speak for him. The prophets were God's people who were called to go talk to the Israelites and to remind them that they were God's people, and God wanted them to be loyal to only him. And so he went and told them, and one of his miracles everybody knows about Elijah was that he called down the fires to burn up the priest of Baal's offer. He said, you do your thing, I'll do my thing, and then God burned them up, and then they killed a lot of all of those priests. Okay, so Elijah did some other things too. He raised the widow woman's son from death. He was in their home. She was an older lady. She had a child, and then the child died, and then he brought the child back to life. Not him, but God through him. He prayed and asked God to do it, and God did it. Also, at one point, he was afraid because he was so outnumbered, and Jezebel and Ahab so hated him, the king and queen, that he was afraid, and he ran and hid and was very sad, and God took care of him. Remember how God fed the Israelites, the manna and the dove? Ravens brought food to Elijah. God sent birds to bring him food and to take care of him. Elijah also prayed that God would not let it rain because of Ahab and Jezebel, and God didn't let it rain for 3.5 years, a severe drought. And then Elijah prayed to God, and that was his big key, guys. He was a praying prophet. He was a prophet of fire. If you hear that, they're talking about Elijah, but his big power was he prayed. He prayed and prayed. He prayed over the widower's son, and he prayed here. So when he was ready, asked God to break the drought, he had a manservant, and he bent over, what the Bible describes, and put his head between his knees, and he prayed. And then his manservant said, nothing happened, and he prayed some more. Manservant, don't see anything. Prayed again. 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. And the 7th time he prayed, the manservant goes, I see a cloud. It looks like a hand. And this tiny little cloud started coming. And then it started to rain. And he prayed. He believed in prayer. He believed in God. He believed what he asked for God would happen. And God made it rain hard. But that's not the cool part of the story to me. The cool part of the story was Elijah told Ahab, it's going to rain, take off, get back to Jezreel, the city. And then for whatever reason, God, empowered Elijah to run ahead of the chariot. Here's Ahab in his chariot with his horses going, fast. And Elijah outruns him. And he doesn't just outrun him for a little ways. He outruns him from estimated to 16 to 20 miles. Here is a man. They said he girded up his loins. He picked up his long robe and he pulled it up so he wouldn't trip over it. And he outran a horse for 16 to 20 miles. We know that was God. We know that was a miracle. And it's just amazing to me. It's like, that's crazy, that God empowered this man to outrun a horse for 20 miles or 16 miles or however much it was. God can do anything, whatever God wants to do. And this story just made me keep thinking about our Bible verse over and over and over about how my ways are higher than your ways. My thoughts are higher than your thoughts. We don't know why God, fired up Elijah to run, but he did. And so when God makes a decision and he wants something done, he can do anything. He can move mountains, he can make the day stop. He can make the rain stop. He can make mountains move and things, all kinds of things. There's all kinds of miracles in the Bible. And it's just a reminder to how incredibly powerful our God is, okay? Elijah served God, and it's recorded. The recorded miracles we know of are 16, between 860 BC and 852 BC. This is before Christ, like 860 years, okay? Some of the miracles we know about, the drought I was told you about, was in 1 Kings, 1st and 2nd Kings, are two books of the Bible. The drought is in 1 Kings 17. It talks about how Elijah asked the widow woman to feed him, and she said, I don't have anything. I just have enough to make one more meal for my son and me, and we're going to eat it and die. And Elijah said, feed me. We told this story, Jason. I bet you remember it. And said, feed me, and she did it. And her oil and stuff never ran out the entire time. So the meal or the grain and the oil just she had enough because God made sure she had enough. He restored the Shunammite woman's child to life. The priest of Baal's sacrifice was consumed by fire, brought the rain, parted the Jordan. So all of these stories are in the Old Testament and Kings if you're interested in it. So here's where we hear about this prophet Elijah, who was a mighty man of God, who believed in God, who trusted God, and who would cry out to God and pray, and God answered him. And this just reminds me, here's a picture I found. I thought it was just amazing. It reminds me that it's all about prayer, guys. Praying. Our Bible says we do not have because you do not ask. That our God wants to bless us. He wants to take care of us. But it also warns us that our prayers have to be in alignment with what God wants from us. We can't, maybe God wants you to have a hamster or a cat or a horse or whatever, but unless that's part of God's plan, we can ask. It doesn't hurt to ask. I had someone said that God answers prayers in 3 ways: yes, no, and wait. So, but God wants us. We're his children, and he loves us so much, and he wants us to pray to him and ask him for things. And there's one more cool thing about Elijah I want to share with you. Elijah was one of 2 men that we've heard of in the Bible that we know of that story was saved for us, that didn't die. He didn't die. So God took him up to heaven in a chariot of fire. So that's kind of appropriate for the prophet of fire, that he was whisked off to heaven without dying. Pretty cool, right? So I'm just curious, which one of his miracles do you think is cool? I think outrunning the horse is pretty cool, but outrunning a chariot and being carried to heaven by a chariot, I think being carried to heaven in a chariot is pretty hard to top. So I hope you have a good week. And I just want you to remember, pray like Elijah. When you really want something, go to God and just keep asking. Because he asked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times for that rain to come. And God brought it. God wants us to ask. So I encourage you to pray. I encourage you to read about Elijah. And have a great week. Be blessed. And I'm glad I could be here with you again. Bye.